And booyah, ladies and gents, once again, back at you. It is your favorite podcast, Keeping It Rio. And this is episode, I think, 141 or 142. I'm not quite positive, but we're starting to get up there a little bit in volume. And every single week, I seem to outdo myself by the quality of guests, the caliber of people that I'm getting on the show. Today, my friends, is absolutely no different. And I've been looking forward to speaking to this guest for a little while because we've got a lot of things in common. Without any further hesitation, let me welcome our guest, Mr. Kaleb Parks, to Keeping It Rio. Kaleb, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Oh, shoot, man. It's another day in paradise. By the way, getting to like 140 plus podcast episodes, you got to pat yourself on the back. I think something like 85% of podcasts never make it past the 20 episode point. So that in and of itself is like a huge testament, man. Good job.
Well, it's all consistency. And I guess maybe if I had anything else exciting going on in my life, it might be different. But this has been a lot of fun. I enjoy it. And I get to talk to a lot of cool people like yourself. I had a lady on yesterday that was 70 years old that lives over in Oregon. Later on this evening, I'm speaking to a guy in Alaska that has a specialty company. I don't want to give it away, but it's the beautiful thing about what we do and being able to reach out to people and just have conversations like this. So I really appreciate your time. Looks like it's really dark out here, like we're doing another Keeping It Rio at 3 a.m. like I did with Tim Brown. But the fact is, it's only 6:30 in the evening. We're both here in San Antonio. So tell me a little bit about your history here. You and I, we're sharing the roofing industry, right? And just recently, this year, 2023, you have ventured out and you formed your own roofing company. Before we get into that, which we'll spend a lot of time, let's talk a little bit about what led you to that point. So first off, Kaleb, how old are you?
So
if you don't mind me being so bold.
Oh, it's all right. I turned 24 last week.
24. Okay, dude, that's awesome. So I know what I'm working with here. How long have you been in the industry in general as a roofing guy? And in what capacity did you get into initially?
So I started this, I got into the roofing industry on accident, like most of us did.
Me too.
Just looking for a different sales opportunity, interviewed at a bunch of places. With roofing, it's the scheduling, the flexibility in your schedule and the money you can make as far as like high commission, high volume. That's what kind of first initially attracted me to it. And I started literally 2 days after I turned 20. And I've not looked back since. It has astronomically changed my life. I first started with a company here in San Antonio. My first year was real rough. I have to I always try to tell people that because I'm the biggest testament to, I believe everybody can learn how to sell. I believe everybody can learn how to be successful in this industry, but it may not come easy to many like it didn't come easy to me. So I started in the roofing industry as a sales rep. My first year I did about I think it was $750,000, little over 750,000. I did all of that in the last 6 months because as I started really rough. The first 6 months, I sold about 20 to 30 roofs, somewhere in there. It's been 3-4 years now, so it's kind of hard to remember the exact amount. I do remember that out of all of those that I got signed, 2 of them got approved. So in my first 6 months, I made maybe $5,000, like in total doing this. And then, it came down to a point where it's like, hey, I got to pay my bills or I got to figure out how to do something else. And I didn't want to go back to school. I didn't want to go back to pulling concrete. That's another part of my story that kind of makes it where I'm willing to go knock a million doors because I'll do anything to not pull concrete again. And I turned it around for myself. I finished the year at $750,000. Going into my second year, I sold about $750,000 in revenue in the first quarter. And then another like $250,000 in the following month after that, almost $1 million in the first quarter. I got promoted to be a sales manager at like still 20, 21 at this point. I ran as a sales manager for about 3 months with a team of 6. And then I got promoted to be the department head of sales for that company and started running a team of about 15. I finished out my first year. My teams did about 6.4 million. My second year, we did about 8.2 million. And then I decided to transfer to go learn from another mentor. And then we started Trident. So that's kind of a little bit of my background in the roofing industry.
Man, okay, so that's super impressive. Early 20s, you're managing a company that's got a sales force of multiple people. You're the head guy. Tell me a little bit about the dynamic there, okay? Because one thing I understand about our industry as I've continued to age is how it was a lot harder for me when I was 24 years old than it is now that I'm 44. The street cred, so as it is, with a lot of guys, especially sales where egos can be kind of, a thing. Did you run across anybody in your organization that was like, man, you know what? This dude is a kid. What is he going to be able to teach me? What does he know that I don't already know? Have you had any blowback just because of your age when you advanced into that position so quickly?
So I would state that when I first moved into it, I was super humble about it because I didn't think I deserved the position. I was just, I was the guy willing to take it on and do all the things that was there. I was willing to take the learning curve. I took it at a reduced pay cut just to have the opportunity. So at first I was really humble coming into it, but eventually I had a sales manager when I came on who trained me. I eventually became his sales manager, and he gave me words that I still live by today. And I give to any young guy who ever asks me for advice on like how to lead men or women who are older than you, more established in the industry, is simply you can't just say things. You have to be doing the things. Live by example and be undeniable. Now that's a quote from somebody else, but as long as you are good at what you do, the respect comes. So like my sales manager, when I started, was like 54. Going into that 1.5 year point is when I became his manager. And he was just like, look, man, you earned this position because of what you do. You know X, Y, and Z. And he's like, I'm going to follow you. And I'm not going to lie. Honestly, having him tuck in and support me so heavily was also a really big thing that helped get the rest of the team on board. But I only really had those struggles for the first 6 months or so of coming into that position, because after that, I controlled all the hiring that went onto the team. So it was kind of a foregone conclusion after that point that you would just kind of follow what was going on. But for the most part, there wasn't a whole lot of blowback. And I really do take all that to just, I live by example. Like, I'm not going to tell you to do things that I myself won't do. If you're struggling on something, I tell you to go knock doors, I'll go knock the doors with you. We're going to figure out what it is. If you're not able to close, I'll go close the deal for you, and we'll figure out where you were kind of missing things up. So it's always just trying to be helpful. I also don't take leadership as I'm the boss. In fact, that's like I consider that like a bad word. I don't
Boss is a 4-letter word. I agree 100%.
I'm not the boss. I'm never the boss. I want to be a leader. And on top of that, I'm a servant. Like anybody who works like underneath me, I'm really, you guys are my boss. That's the way I view it. I'm just here to help you be successful. And I think a lot of that, as far as my leadership development, helped me overcome a lot of those hurdles really early in my career.
Man, that's huge, Caleb. And I'll be honest, because it's very atypical. I've been in this for a long time. And I mean, as someone that's 55 years old, you're in your early 20s, you're less than half this guy's age. It's very uncommon that you find people in modern times that are willing to welcome you in and say, hey, look, a lot of them are very territorial and protective. And one of the things that I really have noticed here in San Antonio, but everywhere, is in roofing supply, especially. Like I was in the roofing supply side for 15 years, and it is a cutthroat deal where people don't want to help people advance because it's like, why would I train you to take my spot? And I think it's a beautiful thing when you find someone that's been through the ringer, so to speak, as a roofing person for that many years. And they're probably just like, dude, please get me somebody younger that can come in and, bring some energy that I don't really want to bring at this point. And then to take you under your wing and then kind of give you that credibility with the team. I don't know who that person is, but kudos to them because they are wonderful and are a credit to the industry regardless. Cause that's very atypical.
My first owner, I mean, he was a great mentor to me. I learned leaps and bounds. I wouldn't be where I'm at without a lot of the things that guy was able to teach me. And it goes beyond just the roofing and the sales and the leadership. I mean, the guy really taught me how to just get my own life under control. Like I'm 20 years old when I walk into this business, right? Like any standard 20-year-old, I don't got anything figured out. I'm behind, I'm in debt. I've got like tons of bills. I barely just everything's chaotic, right? And the guy brings me in as a sales rep, sees me like just refuse to quit in this 6 months where I only made $5,000. This was also the start of 2020. That didn't help me at all either.
Yeah. And then, good timing.
Yeah. So he just saw me refuse to quit, and he kind of just put me under his wing. He's like, here, if you're going to figure this out, here's the output you need to have. Like, if you don't know how to talk well, you need to knock more doors. If you don't know how to close well, you need to set more appointments. And he kind of taught me the math behind it. And I find that, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Somebody opened a door behind me. Got me a little distracted.
Sometimes it happens. We're live on the podcast, but yeah, you're growing into a better human being because of mentorship. And I know
Yeah,
who you're
right.
talking about. So good dude for sure.
Yeah. So he was able to help me a ton. And he kind of set out some foundation, and then it was up to me to carry it on. And not to throw everybody, lower 20s under the bus, but I don't find a lot of guys around my age that want to live the way that I live. Like, I go to bed at 9 o'clock. I wake up at 5 a.m. I work out every day. Work out at 5 a.m. every day. I journal every day. I write and I document my finances every day. I have to read every day. In fact, before we got on here, you caught me reading a book just
I
in between
did.
trying to get things done. And I live this very structured life where I don't go out and hang out with friends on Fridays and Saturdays because I need to be in bed on time so that I can wake up the next day and continue on the process. I'm a big believer in consistency and just doing the work. And I think, you alluded to it earlier, it's harder to find the younger guy to kind of pick up some of these responsibilities because I don't know, maybe it's not even just an age thing. It just feels like a lot of people don't want to work anymore. And that's what it takes to be successful in this industry. It's a grind, especially when you first start and you don't have any knowledge, no skill set to go off of. It's just a grind. Like, you just have to put the hours in.
You put in the hours and you take the beatings. And I think that that's really the part that separates the winners from the losers. And you're spot on. I mean, dude, I've been in this for 25 years. I've literally been in the roofing industry longer than you've been alive. And that just hit me when I said that. It's crazy. But because I don't feel like I'm old, but I guess I am.
It's
But
just a number, right?
exactly. And I'm like you, okay? I get up every morning, I hit the gym, I do my routine, I do my stuff, and I feel like the consistency and the little wins daily, the momentum that you build, it just makes you an unstoppable force, right? And you're spot on, again, I don't want to sound like one of those, these young whippersnappers, but
Mm.
I hire some kids in their early 20s and they're not coming to work at 9 a.m. or whatever. They're showing up and they smell like they've been smoking weed. And you got any leads for me today? If you don't have any leads, what am I going to do? How am I going to earn a living if you don't give me a bunch of leads? And dude, you're going to be very successful because that's your competition, right? Mine is still people that are, my age in their mid 40s. We were a little bit different, like I got a job at 15 and I've been working my entire life. So I've still got that mindset.
Oh,
But
yeah.
somewhere along the way, it kind of just, it fell off. And you're poised to dominate because there aren't that many people in your age group that are doing the things you're doing, and that's very impressive. It's something that a lot of people are paying attention to as well. So let's talk a little bit. I'm going to get back into the roofing here shortly, but let's talk a little bit about that personal development mindset. Let's talk about the fact that you do lead by example. I just saw, you were out there running the Tough Mudder the
Oh,
other
yeah.
day, which is a pretty difficult thing. Trust me, I don't have the guts to do it at this point, but doing that, getting out there, doing your physical stuff, making sure that you're putting in your time with your business, with your family life and everything else as well. You're very well grounded. Tell me, what does a typical day look like for Kaleb? You get up, you just said, I'm up at 5 a.m., which I love. So tell me, at 5:01 till 8:59, what does a typical day look like for you at this point in your career?
So a typical day for me at this point is a little bit different than it used to be. So I wake up at 5 o'clock, and that in and of itself is something that is a little bit strange for most people because I believe you have to change your surroundings for every kind of change you want to make in life, right? So one change that I made 3 years ago when I decided to start waking up at 5 o'clock is my cell phone never goes into my bedroom. It's never there. It just doesn't go there. So that helps me go to bed on time at 8:59, 9 o'clock, right? Because my brain goes, hey, we're in bed. There's nothing else to do here but sleep because I put that work in. The other thing I do by leaving that phone outside of my bedroom is when the alarm goes off at 5 o'clock, I can't just turn it off. I got to get up, walk to a different room, get hit in the face with light. By this point, I'm awake. So I turn off the alarm. It's 5 o'clock. I immediately delete like 32 ounces of water. I carry a jug around all the time. If you ever see me walking around, you've probably seen it in my hand. So I do that. And then I get dressed, get ready, hit a protein shake and some pre-workout, head to the gym. The gym, it really depends on what my day looks like. If I've got a build, I might be there for 30 minutes and then get out, just kind of get some sweat going. The typical day, I try to do 45 minutes to an hour. I don't take, when it comes to the workouts, I usually don't play with my phone. I kind of just put it away and meditate and just work through it. Again, trying to disconnect from some of the technology. I don't know about you, but it seems like your phone can kind of run your life, especially if you work in any kind of sales or entrepreneurship. So I the reason I started waking up at 5 is when I became a sales manager. I found that at 8 o'clock or 7, really, I started getting phone calls. So I needed that 2 hours before I woke up to just be pleasant to talk to. And so I don't mess with my phone at all between 5 and 7 for the most part. After that, the days are very wide and changing. I usually have a to-do list going all the time. It's usually on this whiteboard that's behind me. I erased it so nobody could judge me on what I've got going on right now. And then I just keep working. And I use what is it called? There's like a calendar system. I can't remember whose it is, but I put arrows on stuff that I'm not going to get done today so that I know to bring it on to the next day. And I just keep moving through things. But day to day, it's just going through my to-do list. I have 5 things I have to do every day that I keep track of. I have a set intention. One of them is I have to work out. I have to write. I have to read 10 pages of a nonfiction book. I document all transactions I make, whether it's in the business or my personal finances. And then lastly, I document everything I eat. So I have a whiteboard to the left of me. You probably just saw me look at it, where I keep track of all of that. And when I do all 5 things, I take an X out the day so that I can keep track and kind of have stats and photo documentation of my wins. I've found that gives me confidence. I've been doing that for about 3 years now. And I also think that when I say some of these things, people, they tend to look at you as if you're not a real person. So I also like to let everybody know, like, I do all these things on a daily basis, but just like anybody else, I have bad days. And I believe everybody deserves days off when they have bad days, right? I just live by one simple rule that's kept me consistent for 3 years, and that it's okay to take one day off. It's never okay to take 2 in a row. And as long as I don't ever take 2 days in a row, I've found that I will continue to stay consistent. I know this to be a problem because I can tell you the few times in the last 3 years I've taken more than 2 days off, and it always, every single time becomes a week. Every single time you take 2 days off, it becomes a week. It's crazy. But that's usually how my days go, man. I just set the intention to make sure I do those 5 things and just work through my to-do list. I'm super ADHD. So there's some things I've built into my life to make my life a little bit easier. I don't like meds personally. That's why I work out in the morning. But I have Post-it notes behind my computer right now with all the things like jobs I have going on. Like there's this guy named Akbar. I'm working on his estimate. I have like a full breakdown of some of the things he told me over here. On this side, I've got like my build schedule. So I have everything in front of me. On my bathroom mirror, I have the start of my days, like that 5 a.m. wake up on a piece of paper taped to my mirror. Tells me what my first 30 minutes are going to look like so that I don't have to think about it. Same thing at 9 o'clock when I put my phone away. The 9 to 9:30, like my get to bed routine is put down there so I don't have to think about anything. I find that a lot of people are worried about judgment because if you walked into my house, you'd think my house looks very strange because of all the pieces of papers and notes that I have everywhere. But it's
I wouldn't, trust me. I wouldn't. I'm the same way.
This is where I live. These are the things that I need to be doing, the consistency that I need in my life to get to where I want to go. So I think it's all about changing your, not habitat, that's animal word, but your surroundings so that you can be successful and execute. And then a big thing is just being aware of what you're trying to do. So when I mentioned writing down every transaction, what that started from is like any young dude, you make a little bit of money. And like my first year, I made $100,000 in roofing sales, for example. I get to the end of the year, get my tax return stuff back. And like my breakdown, I'm like, where'd all that go?
Right.
So I immediately realized that I got a little bit of a spending problem. So I got to reel that back in. And I don't really make any changes to say what my budget is and things like that. And that's maybe not financial advice for anybody to follow me. But I'm always aware of what I'm spending money on because I have to write it down every day. It's being aware of things, I think, is huge. So same thing with like my diet, just documenting what I'm eating every day makes me think twice about what I'm going to eat. Makes me think twice about what I'm swiping my card on. Having to work out every day and keeping track of that on a board. I know if I didn't work out 3 days in a row, it's not something that I'm thinking about. It's something I see every day. So just being aware of the progress you're trying to make and taking the 1 minute to document these things, it can be life-changing in terms of the results that you'll get out of it.
Yes, absolutely, my friend. And I'll tell you what, you are super impressive. Let's kind of go back towards the career now, because I wanted to kind of lay that foundation. I want to see what kind of guy you are, because a lot of the times in roofing, okay, and I've been around for 25 years in like a whole bunch of different capacities. I've been in supply. Opened a supply company from scratch one time in North Carolina, randomly moved to Texas, sold roofs, randomly moved to San Antonio in 2019, and we bought a company that was out of business. Did that for a few years, shut it back down, bought the damn thing again. So like I've kind of been around and I understand how some of this stuff works and some of the pitfalls you can run into. Let's go back to the day, okay, when you decide I need to do my own company. I need to be the man, okay? What's the thought process? Because it's typically one of two things. Number one, I've hit the glass ceiling and I can't go any higher. Why am I making this person all this money when I could go do it myself? Or I have a higher purpose. You know, being a sales manager is great, but I'm a born leader. I follow my disciplines and I do my stuff. What was your thought process the day that this happened? And was there something kind of a backstory that really just kind of said, it's time, Kaleb, let's go, bro? How did that look?
So it starts really with before ever coming to the day to start my roofing company. So all these things that I've mentioned that I do were in preparation for exactly this. Now, did I think I was going to own a roofing company? I actually didn't want to for a very long time. It was one of those things where even in the department head role, people would ask you like, why aren't you doing your own thing? And when you sit there, I'm like, man, I don't want any part of the roofing industry right now. It's like way too many moving parts. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't think I wanted to go that route. So for me, doing all of those things was a steady foundation for me to become an entrepreneur, because that's what I knew I wanted to do. I've wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was 13 when I started knocking doors, mowing yards. So it's just a matter of like, I knew I needed to set a good foundation. So what happened is I was working for another company. I'd left the company that I was the department head of because I thought it was time to seek a new mentor and see a different way the roofing industry works. Most of my background to that point was insurance restoration. I wanted to understand how retail worked. So I took a move to a more retail-based company, implemented some of my systems there to try to grow and expand their sales process, which we did great. I think in the 6 months I decided to be at that company, we hit their last year's targets. Like, we did over their last year's numbers in 6 months based on some of the changes and tweaks that I was able to make. But ultimately, when I went to that company, they're more of a 9-to-5 company, and there's nothing wrong with that. I want to preface that there's nothing wrong with that. That's just not me. So after 6 months or so, we were at a cultural difference. So I decided to kind of just step away. It was best for them because I wasn't a good fit for their culture. And it was best for me because I realized I wasn't a good fit because I come from more of the hustle background. Like, you work. We knock a bunch of doors. We're trying to sell not only 1 million, but 2 million each, push kind of culture. And so it's June 30th when I decided to part ways, the end of June, so that I could finish out my month with them. And I'm sitting here, I'm just like, what to do? Do I want to go work for another person and be in the same situation where I've got to try to find a good culture for me? And then in the event that I do find a culture that works for me, who's this person that I'm supposed to now like lead underneath? So for me, it's just, I get real skeptical of different leaders because I've been with bad leaders. I think everyone's worked for a bad leader. So I didn't want to be in that situation. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, I don't want to do sales manager and work for a bad leader, a bad owner. I could go back into sales, but that seems like a down step from where I'm at. And it's not helping me build the skill set I want towards being an entrepreneur. And so I was consulting with a solar company on some of their sales processes at the time. And I called that guy and I said, hey, look, I think I'm going to start a roofing company, because at this point I just decided I'm going to have to start a pipeline from scratch no matter what I do. And if I have to do that, I might as well do it for me. And so I said, hey, I'm going to start a roofing company, but I have an idea. Since you've had this company for 2 years and you have kind of a brand and you're established, why don't I start a roofing company under the same name, sell you a portion of it, and we can grow our companies in tandem so that I don't have to start a brand new brand from scratch. And that's how Trident was born. I was just consulting for a solar company on some sales stuff, and partnered with him, kind of bought a portion of his company so it made sense, and then launched Trident Roofing and sold him a small portion of our company so that we could kind of grow in tandem. And
I like that.
That's where Trident came from. I've just always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And when I looked at it from where I was at in my life at this point, I know I can lead people. I know I can generate sales. I know that I have to work a little bit on my production knowledge, because that's not really my background. But starting at 20, we talked about this earlier. You talked about, did I ever get pushback from some of the guys I was leading because of my age? I didn't get a lot of pushback from them because I was always a live by example kind of person, a servant leader type of thing. So I was always able to get the respect of the guys who were with me eventually. And what I did experience though at 20 years old is homeowners that didn't trust me. So really early in my career, not only did I not know how to sell, I didn't know anything about roofing. So the first thing I had to learn was everything there is to know about putting on a roofing system, because when my baby face showed up at 20 years old and tried to tell you about your $20,000 project, you hammered me with questions because you maybe didn't think I was competent, or you didn't know if I knew what I was talking about. So one of the first things I did in my career is I had to like really dive into all the nuts and bolts of roofing systems and what the pros and cons of each thing are. And that really helps me now with my production and fulfillment side of things.
Yes, without a doubt. It's super important to know that stuff. And to be honest, I was on the exact opposite side of the world from you, in that I was in distribution. And when I was doing that, I basically was the guy who they would, call in and order their materials or send me. Back in the day, it was a fax machine we had. I don't even know if you know what a fax machine is, but we had one of those bad boys, and they'd send in these orders and I would just type them in. And the thought for me, basically, the most thought that went into my job was like, do they have cans of spray paint? Do they have tubes of sealant? If not, like, my big catch for the day is I get to call and say, hey, you forgot to order, a can of paint. But I also got to learn all of the products, very intimately over 15 years. I started as a rooftop delivery guy, and I ran a conveyor truck for 12 years. So you get out into the field, you appreciate how hard the physical side of it is. My crews respect that because I'm not afraid to go out there and work with them even at my age. But you're spot on, right? You go to a house, and this happened to me even though I was 32 when I broke into roofing sales and I started going into people's homes and presenting. But even then, it was like, does this guy know enough about what he's doing? And for me, I think I went the other extreme to where I would go in and just start giving all this information. And I would just tell them every freaking detail about it. Your nails are going to be 1 inch, 3 inch, 16 inches, and I'd give them all this minutia and this crap that they didn't care about. And that's what really hurt me. I think I knew too much going in. So to come from the opposite side of not knowing anything and trying to go in and learn as well, I think both of us faced a similar uphill battle, but in a completely opposite way, which is interesting. So as a 20-year-old, you're going in, you're trying to win over people. It is a pain in the butt sometimes, and it's hard. And I'm sure that for a while, you probably lost several jobs that you felt you were the most qualified for, 100% based on just your age, right? So a lot of people I know in our industry give up because of that exact reason. Man, I can't sell. People don't give me credit. I'm not old enough. I don't know enough. Mrs. Jones thinks I'm a little, child. Tell me a little bit about the dynamic of getting the door slammed in your face, how that toughens you. And then ultimately, when you turn the corner and you start making deals, was there that one moment in your career where the switch flipped and all of a sudden Kaleb becomes a beast?
You know what? For me, it was, so when I decided I wasn't going to go back to college, I had this little bit of a nest egg put away that I'd saved, through school. And like I mentioned earlier, I started working when I was 13, knocking doors, mowing yards, and then eventually did the normal fast food thing that every high school kid does, and so on and such forth. So I had a little nest egg put away for college. And when I decided I wasn't going to do that anymore, I took that money and I spent it on sales training. So I could learn everything about roofing through the portals. Every manufacturer's got some sort of portal. They've got reading. You can read, you can do the port, whatever. You can learn all the roofing stuff that way. Real free, real easy. But when it came to sales, the problem is the people that you're going to directly run into maybe aren't the best resources to be taught from. And that's not a dig on anybody, because I've met great salespeople who just don't know how to teach. And that's nothing against them. They're two completely different skill sets. But so I took that money, I invested. The first course I bought was the Roof Strategist course. That changed my whole year. I mentioned 6 months before that, no sales. And then 6 months, $750,000. The changing turning point there was I bought the Roof Strategist course and I just executed on what he said worked. So that was the first start. Then beyond that, it was a matter of just realizing that somewhere in that year, I realized that sales was more than talking to people. And I've said this analogy a million times, but it's like being an electrician. There's principles to conversation and sales that if you understand them, you can learn and control that conversation and dictate the outcome. It's like being an electrician, where you go to school, you learn how to wire things up, you learn the principles of being an electrician, and then you go out and wire everything up. You read a bunch of sales books, you take a bunch of courses, you learn the principles of conversation and closing, and then you have the tools to go and close deals, right? So that helped me a ton, is just investing back in my education. And I tell people, you don't have to start with a $300 course or a $2,500 course, or as high as $10,000 to $100,000. There's tons of courses out there that you can pay for. Start by just buying books and pick up a book and learn how to negotiate, learn how to actually be a likable person. It's insane how many people think that we're just naturally likable. And some people are born with the gift of gab. I'll tell you, I wasn't. But there's so many people who have this false confidence that they just know how to talk to people always. And I would say that you should really look into what professionals do, because it will make you much more likable. It'll make you able to control the conversation in a way that you need to, and just invest in your education. That's really been the turning point for me. So when I talk about servant leadership, like Extreme Ownership, great book. Anything you can find on like the masterclass with Jocko Willink, like all of his stuff, great stuff. When it comes to sales and negotiation, like Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference is like the first book I give most salespeople, because it's 7 really simple things that you can learn and use every day. And you don't have to read another book. If you just learn those 7, you're better than 80% of people that ever talk to somebody or do sales. And it's just a matter of educating yourself. Stop acting like you know everything. Be humble enough to learn from somebody else.
Man, it's that simple, really. And it's crazy when you say that, because most people never grasp the concept. I worked for a gentleman who was in his 60s, and he used to make fun of me because I was doing sales training, because I was reading. And it's like, bro, I'm making you millions of dollars. Why are you laughing at me? And his whole thing was, I've never had to read a book and I've never had to do any of that. And it's like, well, I mean, we're not always as good as we think we are in our own eyes. And I'll say that now after the fact that I'm no longer associated with that, but it was kind of sad, really. And it was like, dude, that's the mindset that most people have. And something that I've really noticed that I've been super impressed with in our industry specifically is there has been a huge, there's been a huge push towards personal development, towards guys like yourself that are in their 20s who are now willing to actually put in the work and become, elite level in other ways that, maybe 10 years ago were not available or people weren't doing. So now at 24, you're probably more qualified to start a roofing business than a 24-year-old would have been, obviously when I was 24. That was like before the freaking internet. There were dinosaurs running around at that point.
So many resources with YouTube. I mean, Audible, I pay for an Audible subscription. I pay for the premium one. So I think it's like $25 a month. I get 2 books and access to their things. Yep. $25 a month. To expand that, $300 a year. That's all it takes. And you will be a completely different person if you just put in the time. And look, I didn't like to read either when I started. In fact, I didn't pick up a book after graduating. I mean, there's a good 4-year point where I didn't touch a book. And there's actually a stat somewhere. I think it's 50% of people don't pick up a book after they graduate high school. 80 or of that 50% that do, 80% of them pick up 2 books in their whole lifetime after that. There's only like a small subsection of people, like 10% of our population, that continues to educate themselves through nonfiction after they've graduated some type of school, whether that's college or high school. And I've found that, for example, the way that I speak, I couldn't speak and be as articulate as I am if it wasn't for the fact that I've read and or listened to 100 books on how to talk. I couldn't do the leadership roles that I've had in life so far if it wasn't for the fact that I was humble enough to go, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me figure out from these people who have done things how you're supposed to lead. Because if I just try to figure it out myself, I become the boss. I'm just going to start telling people what to do. One of the greatest things I ever learned is when you're a leader, you're not the boss, you're a servant. Your job is to make everybody else the hero. When good things happen, it's because of me, but you push that to somebody else. When bad things happen, that's all me. There's nobody else's fault. If you messed up on an order, it's because I failed to put a good enough checklist in place for you to not mess that up. If you can't close a deal, it's because I failed to teach you how to close a deal. If you can't knock doors and set appointments, because I failed to relay how important it is to do those things. So it's just a matter of taking ownership of things. I'm sorry, I get a little distracted sometimes, but just continue to learn, man.
That's it. And accountability. What an amazing concept, holding yourself accountable to your decisions and your choices in life, and being willing to put yourself out there and take the risk. That's where the wins happen. I love it, dude. Like this has got me all fired up because you're a younger version of me. And I'm just like, I'm talking to myself 20 years down the road. And I'm gonna dig in now to the roofing side of things. So you start your company. Obviously, still your company is in its infancy. You said back in June. So I just recently bought the assets for Rio Blanco Roofing back here in San Antonio, which is a company that had been established, got shut down, and we are going to reopen it. And some of the things that you deal with when you're starting a roofing company are very atypical to, normal people problems. So, number one, when you decide you're going to start a roofing company, you tell your friends, you tell your family. How many people try to talk you out of it from the beginning? Because a lot of people, they want to do it, and then they're wiser, more elderly folks will tell them that's a mistake. You should just go get a 9 to 5 and do what you want. So did you have anybody in your circle when you decided that you're going to jump out there and actually be the main name on the marquee that tried to talk you out of your vision?
So what I would say is a part of growth and getting better is you really separate yourself from a lot of people. So my circle is maybe 4 or 5 people that really like know me outside of what's on social media. They see what, like, they've had dinner with me and my family, things like that. So it's a very limited number of people. So the first thing I would say is I don't have a large enough influence from other people to really get a lot of that. But here's kind of how I started the business. I made the phone call. I made the decision. I made the phone call. And then I started filing the paperwork. My fiance came home and I said, I'm starting a roofing company. And about 2-3 weeks later, after I went through and got like your licensing, your insurance, all that good stuff, that's when I called and I said, hey, Dad, just so you know, like I left this company. I'm starting my own thing. I'm going to do it. Like, we're already here. Here's what I've done, blah, blah, blah. And it's just, people have fears that when I hear it, I understand what it is. It's like my parents, of course, they're skeptical. They're worried that anybody who wants to do well wants you to take a safe route because they want you to be okay, right?
Absolutely. Nobody wants to see you get hurt.
Exactly. So that's all I view it as. When people did have concerns or worries or things like that, I just looked at it and went, they're just worried for me. But I know without a shadow of a doubt, and this is going to sound arrogant, I know it coming out right now, I cannot fail. And there's one simple reason why I can't fail. It's because I just won't quit. It's the same reason why I was able to figure out sales the first year I was in this industry is 6 months of getting my teeth kicked in. I can't fail because I won't quit. I'm stupid enough to hold on to anything because I know that hard times always pass. It doesn't matter how bad things are. They cannot last forever. And so I just look at it when the people had those reserves, they just want what's best for me. I mean, of course, my mother was probably the most like, are you sure? Are you okay? You could do this? But I was just like, trust me, I've got this. I've done the work. I've set up my life. I've built the structure. I am the person that I need to be to make this happen because I don't think it's just a matter of starting the company and going. I think you have to be a certain type of person for the entrepreneurship road to work. Some people start that process the moment they start the company. I was fortunate enough that I kind of started developing who I was and who I needed to be a successful entrepreneur prior to starting the job, that I just have this delusional faith in myself that, again, I can't fail because I just won't quit and I've done the work.
Yep. Dude, hey, that is not arrogant at all. Believe me, I say that every single day. I look in the mirror and I'm like, dude, you're the man. You are the man. If you don't believe it, nobody else will. So I definitely respect the fact that you're willing to say that, because it's true. You're the one that's stepping out there. You're taking a risk that 99% of the people in our population will never have the balls to do. And I love the fact that you made the decision and you said, let's rock with it. I think a lot of people also get themselves in that analysis paralysis type mode where, oh my gosh, I never thought about what could go wrong. I never thought about this. I'm the same way, dude. Like when I got to San Antonio, I literally was myself and 2 buddies bought a roofing company that was out of business. I had never even been to San Antonio before, but it was like, yeah, hell yeah, this is going to succeed. Why is it going to succeed? Because I'm doing it, dude. And I know what I can do. And sure, there's going to be bumps and there's going to be bruises along the way. But as long as you keep getting up, as long as you keep fighting, you're spot on. Like you can't lose, and as long as you can define what wins and losses are in your mind versus what other people are going to, and you don't care what other people think, it's a beautiful thing, dude. And life can be so much fun because you can create something in your vision. You can make it exactly what you want it to be. And, like the Rio thing, and I don't mean to talk so much here. I know that
Oh, it's all right.
you're the guest, but with the Rio thing, I had multiple options for people that I could have worked with through this process to get the company back, to partner up with me. And it was very flattering people. Like, I can't even say who some of them are because they're like, yeah, right, whatever, Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
But I found a buddy of mine who's got a business. He's very successful. He's got multiple roofing companies. He's got a lot of real estate investments. And the thing that really drew me into it was the expectations are going to be a little bit looser than what they were the first time. When I started this company 3 years ago, 5 years ago now, damn, it's been a while. When we started this back 5 years ago, my goal started off as like, I'm going to build a $50 million roofing company. We're going to have 25 offices nationwide. We're going to do all this stuff, right? And we hit the ground running. So I was here for about a week. We got hit with a hailstorm. I was able to get a few people in there. We started moving. Within 18 months, I had 3 offices, and they were not close to each other. They were, 5 hours driving apart. And to me,
sorry,
sorry,
I totally just ruined your flow, but I just had a memory from my first year in 2020. Your company is one of the few that I ever lost a deal to. Like, one of the very few that, like, just straight up, I had a deal and it was gone.
I'm going to clip this and play it now, right? This is going to be the reel that I introduced this podcast to the world with. So tell me a little bit more about that story.
I remember it very clear because I had sold 4 around it, and my buddy had sold the other 2 on the other side, all of the neighbors, and this one house on the corner went with Rio Blanco.
That's what I'm talking about, you guys. And the beauty of it is it's something that we can enjoy and we can laugh, because it's like, dude, that's kind of a cool thing. There's no competition. I always joke and say way more houses than jobs. And if we all do 5 houses a day for the rest of our life, guess what? There's still going to be roofs when we all die, and someone else is going to have to fight over them. And that's a cool story. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I have a feast mentality when it comes, and some people take this the wrong way, but I believe that if a roof isn't on, homeowner still has all the time in the world. Okay.
Yep.
And I've been the guy who's taken signs. I've been the guy who's lost signs. That's the nature of our business. And the reason that I feel that that's so important in our industry is because if you're a sales rep and you don't think you're the best option for every single homeowner, you're working for the wrong company. I don't care if you have a sign in the yard, because I'm the best in the city. And I mean that for every organization I've worked for, because that has to be your belief. And sometimes you lose deals, goes the other way. I've lost plenty. I mean, I've lost some to, like I said, Rio Blanco. I've lost some before to other companies, but it just happens. It's the nature of the business. And I think if there's anything a sales rep can take from this, you have to believe that you are the best option. Like, if you're not believing that you're the best option, go find a company where you think you would be, because you're just going to be more dominant, and it's going to be way better for you at home because you're going to have more sales, which means more money.
Absolutely. And, I have the same mindset. I come in here, my company's out of business. The first guy I met, this was amazing. It's over in Stone Oak, which you're from, San Antonio. So, nice area of town. I get a call the day after this hailstorm, right? And this dude calls, and I just happened to be in my office because I had nothing going on. I'd literally had been here like a week, and I didn't even have an apartment. I was staying in my shop, like the whole starving artist type deal. Well, I get this call from this guy, and he's like, yeah, you guys did my roof before, and I really loved you, and I was going to say something like, well, sir, but I'm like, screw it. Let's go meet this guy. Once I get in front of him, I can tell him the story about how totally different company and this and that. I get over there, and my vehicle at that point, I'd been in Indianapolis. My truck had been wrapped with a different company name, and it says serving Indianapolis, Indiana. I roll up into this dude's driveway in Stone Oak, and I convinced him within 5 seconds that I'm the best option. And you know why? I told him I'm the best option. Like, you're not going to meet anybody better than me. And I said, the guy that we bought the company from was your best option. Well, I'm obviously better than that because I bought the company from him, and here we are. And I ended up getting like 5 or 6 roofs from that guy. But it was just that belief going in where, if you asked me to name 5 roofing companies in San Antonio, I can probably name 5. But I don't have any idea about competition, because to me, there is no competition. I am the best at what I do. In my mind, I believe it. And I believe that if I compete against anybody, I don't care who it is, Grant Cardone can start a roofing company and go talk to the same homeowners, I will beat him.
Yep.
And I'm with you though. If I don't, I can also get past it. But going into that mindset, it's like, dude, I've pulled up with new sales reps and I've told them, we're going to close this deal on the one call. We're going to nail this. And I put myself under that pressure of, you know, your trainee thinks you're an idiot if you don't pull that off when you say it. So you put that pressure, it gives you the ability to elevate to a different level. But I love that mindset, right? Who's your competition? I don't have any. This dude right here that I look in the mirror is my competition. And as long as you think that way, you're going to continue to move forward. So let's talk a little bit about your vision now with your roofing company. You're getting started. You've got the mindset, dude. You're very well organized. You've got the habits that are going to lead to success. What is your ultimate vision for Trident Roofing? Or is it something you're looking to, you know, do long term? Is it something you're looking to maybe build, scale, exit? I know the industry has shown some strange trends over the last couple of years, and I love talking to new guys in the industry to kind of see what their thoughts are. What's your vision look like 3, 5, 10 years down the road for your company?
So obviously that's a little bit of a loaded question, so it might take me a minute to answer. But
Yep.
I would say one of the first more obvious things is we want to create a company that is not only good for the homeowner, but it's good for the employee. Because I've worked in bad cultures before. I've seen what bad sales cultures are. And that's unfortunately kind of prevalent in our industry in some context. So we want to make a good company for the employee as well. And then the third prong of the three Trident three-prong approach is to make a company that's good for the community. So some other things we want to do is like be able to give a free roof away every quarter to somebody in need in the community. That's something we really, really are passionate about and trying to implement in our company right now. Still a little early. So obviously the expendable income really isn't there yet, but that's something down on the road we want to do to make kind of give back to our community. Ultimately, one of the things about being good for the employee is I obviously have wanted to be an entrepreneur for a very long time. I was very fortunate to have a great mentor in this industry, and I want to be able to do that for other people. So my biggest thing, and we talked about it earlier, is I kind of have a feast mentality. Just because you're in business and doing well doesn't mean I'm doing bad. Just because somebody came, you know, and worked and learned things from me and decided to start on their own thing, to me, that's kind of a compliment. Because if somebody comes to you, mentors under you, and feels confident enough that they can take this risk to also help homeowners and build a community and build a team, that's a great compliment. And I want to be able to teach people and give a roadmap to how to do that. And I think a big part of the scaling and growth plan of Trident is kind of going to piggyback on the insurance agent model. I'm not sure if you're familiar with how that works, but typically you go in, you work for a certain amount of time, you show a certain level of competency, and then you can buy in to open your own office. And I think that's long-term how we're going to grow. My ultimate goal is to exit in about 10 years. I love the roofing industry, but I really don't want to be walking roofs at 35. So those are things that are kind of where I want to go.
I like it, man. And in that window, I see a huge shift in our industry, and I've been in it long enough to where I've seen this defined shift. For me, it seems like right now the insurance proceeds model it's dying a slow death, right? I feel like if you're a company that's not diverse enough, or if you're one of these younger guys, and thank God you're not, because I can clearly see you're not, but one of these younger guys who has a good summer, goes out, you know, kicks some butt on a hailstorm, and all of a sudden is a roofing professional, I have a bad feeling that some of those guys are going to be really screwed here shortly when things start to turn. And what it's looking like to me is you're going to have 5 or 6 major players in the industry, and then they're going to squeeze a bunch of guys out. So looking at that type of potential, what does your business model look like as far as, you know, obviously you're smart. You're not trying to put all your eggs in one basket, but how are you going to diversify your company to where, you know, you're not sitting there upside down on jobs for 90 days while State Farm or Allstate or any of these wonderful companies are holding your money and they're getting interest in their bank account, so they don't really have any super, you know, pressing need to send it to you? How does that look for you? Because I know a lot of people are going to start freaking out, but what kind of things are you doing to offset that, to put yourself in a position to be available when everything kind of falls apart? Because, folks, it's on its way.
Coming. So you shouldn't start a company with the idea to do the exact same thing as every other company. That's the first thing I would say, right? So we're not an insurance-based restoration company. In fact, not at all our approach. I don't care. I have a certain profit margin I have to be at, and that's what we sell roofs on, is retail. And we're big on financing. Another big thing that I think is important is the implementation of technology. I'm very fortunate that I've kind of grown up with it, so I'm pretty good with it. And I'm taking steps to implement a lot of technology that I don't see other roofing companies doing. That is drastically increasing my overhead and reducing my labor capital. There's first like tidbit, spend some time going down the AI rabbit hole. You would be amazed what is out right now. And in the last year, just the crazy things that have come out. You can have AI make cold calls for you. You can have AI answer your phone. You can have AI do your frequently asked questions. You can have AI do all of your bot texting on like setting up your appointments in your messenger. You can have AI act as most of your office staff. You can have AI do all of your social media. There's just so much you can do to implement to kind of get around that and grow much faster with much less labor capital in positions that aren't making money. So my example is like, I wouldn't mind having 20 sales reps. The overhead on that is not crazy. You just need to pay for their services, be able to quote, things like that. But I don't want 20 office staff. I don't. I think that's a bad thing in the industry personally, because I think it's just way too high overhead. It doesn't make sense to me. I think you do need competent professionals, say accounting and bookkeepers and things like that. You don't want to designate that off to AI quite yet because it's not there. But there's a lot of roles that companies have people in, and I'm not advocating for letting go of people to implement AI, but I don't have the people there. So I just immediately go straight into the AI. And, that's one thing we're doing to kind of differentiate ourselves and make sure that we're sustainable over the long term. As well as I mentioned it earlier, I'm not an insurance guy. My background, the first 3.5 years of my career is all insurance restoration. I've completely gone away from that since starting Trident. We have done zero insurance work. Has insurance been involved? Yes. Do I deal with them? Not at all. And the big thing is you have to put that responsibility back on the homeowner. And a lot of roofers are terrified to do that because they're like, and you will lose a deal occasionally. That's not my customer. It's that simple, because my customer understands that they have more power than I ever do in this conversation. I can coach you. I can tell you what you need to say, what you need to look out for, but I'm not spending 10 hours on the phone with the insurance. I'm not chasing my money for 90 days. That's not happening. So it's a matter of, I think it's breaking old habits, old ideas. I know a lot of people are probably sitting here like, this kid's crazy, doesn't know what he's talking about. I know this works because I've done it for the last year, including the time before I started this company. It's just a matter of what you tolerate as a salesperson or an owner. If you set the expectations with your homeowners and you're good at communicating it, it's just like communicating the insurance process. Some people are so good at selling the insurance process, they forget you can sell other ways to do this. And I think it's just a matter of being open to changing. Because to me, I look at the insurance cow is everybody has done milked this thing. And now insurance is starting to fight back. And I think my prediction over the next 10 years is we're going to see radically different policies that exclude hail damage. That's my idea. I obviously am not an insurance professional. I'm just making blind shots here. But that's what I see based on what I'm seeing.
Yeah. And, now everything's shifting into impact resistant products. We've got products out there now that are hail proof. And, it's a dangerous model because, like you said, if everybody's squeezing off the same udder, man, eventually the milk's going to run out, or the cow's going to get sick of giving you the milk and it's going to start kicking you in the face. And if you're not ready to move forward with it, it's going to be bad. And I really love what you said, because I'm kind of in the exact same position. I do not have a sales staff right now at all. And I'm looking at completely redefining the way that we do our company as well. I had a brick and mortar office with a warehouse. I had freaking tons of inventory. There was tools. There was, if you need a bundle of shingles, I have basically a shingle warehouse. Mm-hmm. And it was just a big old expense. It was a huge expense. And I look at it now, I think we're going more towards, like you're saying, where we're going to minimize our overhead to the best of our ability. We're going to utilize the technology. I'd like to give a shout out to my sponsor, Roofer. I mean, Roofer has been one of the biggest innovations in the last 5 years in our industry, and they're just getting started. But my goodness, they've changed the entire game in just that short period of time. I'm going to start looking at stuff like that even deeper as well, because I agree. This is a changing game. Everything's kind of evolving. It's changing. It's, as technology gets more and more prevalent, the old school people that are writing on napkins and doing all that stuff, they're going to get forced out. And I'm not ready to get forced out yet. I just forced my way back in. So not ready to get booted out of this deal just yet. And I'm super excited to see what this looks like for us moving forward in the future. I can't believe we're 55 minutes into our talk here, Kaleb. I got another hour worth of stuff I want to talk about, but I guess that's going to open the opportunity for another episode down the road, hopefully. Let's start winding it down just a tad bit. Okay. This is, yeah.
If I could leave with just like one thing, if there's two things that I've learned that have helped me astronomically over the last 4 years in terms of just being a guy who could barely pay rent to just figuring out my career, and I'm getting married this next Sunday, like just figuring things out, right? And making positive progress in my life. I've lost 60 pounds or so in the last like 3 years. Just all these things that I've done that have been huge impacts come from two small, very simple principles. And that's believe in exponential growth by being 1% better every day, because it's not hard to pick up a book and read 3 pages. Start there. It's not hard to walk around the block. Start there. It's a matter of humbling yourself enough to take a baby step, to be 1% better every day. And the second thing being, live with intention. Most couples, when they set the intention to buy a house together, they eventually figure it out. And for some reason, they stop setting intentions after that, and they live life on autopilot. Set intentions. I set 5 intentions for every day so that I'm moving forward towards my goals. Don't live on autopilot. Don't be unintentional. Be intentional about your life and be 1% better every day.
It's that easy. It's just the implementation that people get stuck and caught up on and don't ever make it happen. So let's do it this way. Okay. You and I are competitors in the same market. We're both in the same industry. We're both doing roofing. I always love to do this at the end though. Anybody that's watching, obviously I'm not having hacks and terrible roofing people on my program. If you're in San Antonio and you're looking for a roofing company that you can trust, obviously I've got one. But I've got a buddy right here as well who is very reputable. He's a very intelligent young man. I can clearly see that he's going to do the right thing. Kaleb, if anybody watching this, Keeping It Rio right now, wants to find out how they can get some information about Trident, how they can follow you, what are some of the best ways that that they can do to, get in your presence, find out what you can offer them, and, put a new roof on their house for them in San Antonio?
Yeah, excellent question. I mean, if you're looking for Trident, we've got TridentRoofingLLC.com. You can find all of our information on there. Trident Roofing LLC on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We have our own podcast called Trident Talk. And then as far as me personally, you can find me at Kaleb__Parks on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. I'm all over the place. It's the same username everywhere. Shoot me a message. I love to help sales guys. Like I said, I've got a feast mentality. If you ever have a question, I may not have an answer, but I'll give you a perspective or shoot you to somebody who might have an answer. I'm here to help. That's all I'm here to help homeowners, here to help other professionals. I just want to see people thrive and be successful.
Bam. What a great conversation this has been, Kaleb. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I'm already going to throw the invitation out for a repeat episode somewhere down the road. We're here in the same community, and you showed me where you shoot your podcast. So I will be more than happy anytime that you'd like to have a guest here locally to come by and chat, and just, anything I can do to help you. You're like a younger version of me, and I clearly see it now, and I'm super proud of you for what you're doing. Look forward to seeing your progress. And as always, thank you everybody who watches Keeping It Rio. Always remember, share, like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Go use Roofer if you've got a roofing company, because they are helping everybody that they can. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to end it with my cheesy tagline that I end every episode. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, keep on keeping it Rio. And thanks again, Kaleb Parks, for your time this evening. I appreciate you. Until next time.